Calling to order the 28th regular meeting of the Lake County Board of Commissioners. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our meeting today. May our discussions be fruitful, our decisions wise, and our community strong. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here.
Commissioner Hamercheck.
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present. Next on the agenda, we have public portion. Anyone who would like to speak to the Board of Commissioners, please approach. You have 3 minutes after stating your name and address, and I would remind everyone to please comply with Ohio Revised Code. Disruption of public meetings are crimes under Ohio law, so let's show respect to one another. Anyone for public portion?
Thank you, Commissioner. Chris Bahari, West Jackson in Painesville, Ohio. Let's have a moment of prayer. As we always do have prayer, we do allow God to come into our life because God is already there. We just have to wake up to it. So let us be awake for this wonderful meeting this morning and have a moment of silent prayer for any things that you want for this weekend, for party in the park, for all of Painesville and all of Lake County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion?
Good morning, everyone. Reginald Black, 200 West Jackson Street. To my managers, directors, commissioners, I cannot stop giving you guys praise. I will get up here every week for the rest of my life if I have to. I thank you for the wonderful job that you are doing. I know you have a hard job, you have a busy schedule, but God has blessed you and He's placed you in a position because only you can do this job. I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate you and I have you and your family first most in my prayers. God be with you and God bless you and Godspeed. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public portion? Anyone else?
Chris Weiss Leroy. So once again, Boss Plechnik, I'm going to ask you, will you release the materials you submitted for grade in your public administration course and settle the public controversy as to whether or not you really are involved in the probate case filed by the Fellowses and their friends? What do you say? I thought so. You know, it's interesting here, despite the public dispersions of my own character, there are people that are of good repute, many of them in fact, that seem to feel the same way I do. Okay, in fact, in the Court of Claims, even brought in the firm of Dworkin and Bernstein. Richard Selby is one of the attorneys involved in this. He's arguably Dworkin and Bernstein's top gun litigator, I believe. Also Gallagher and Sharp. You know, there's been public expense gone to in order to try to keep these documents from going public. At first, the prosecutor's office said that this comes under FERPA, Family Education and Rights of Privacy Act. They also said that they're not public documents, or at least what I conclude here is that the request was made in a manner where they could use that as a reason not to release them. But after all that was said and done, they got the judge to want to look at these documents ex parte, whereupon prosecutor's office responded to say that the records don't exist. Now, how could that be? Could Could someone in the prosecutor's office possibly have misfiled these? Could they have never existed at all and they just failed to say that in the first document request? You know, but in light of it all, you're at the center of this whole thing. Some attorney had to draft that complaint. It couldn't have been done by the people that filed it because they're not trained in the law, okay? Arguably, two of these people, Dale and Nancy Fellows, are two of your closest political allies. I found another interesting document, the nominating petition and statement of candidacy for Laura Pismo, who, until her unfortunate and untimely death, may she rest in peace, was running for mayor of Willoughby Hills in the city that you live in. And on this document, there is an area for people to put name persons as a committee to represent them, a replacement committee. Who's on the list? Michael Pismo, Dale Fellows, Virginia Bing, Nancy Fellows, and guess who? Boss Plechnik, okay? It was interesting, last fall I was at a meeting of the Republican Party where you guys had Matt Heberbrand bring a censure action against Chris Hallam, who was running for mayor, against your candidate. And both you and Mr. Fellows spent a great deal of time expounding upon why the party should censure
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Weiss.
Hallam and
Thank
not
you.
allow him to be a part of the
Mr.
party.
Weiss.
Perhaps
Thank
Mr.
you so
Fellows
much,
can
Mr.
comment on that
Weiss.
since he's in the
Thank
room.
you, Mr. Weiss. Grateful for your comments. Anyone else for public portion? And Madam Clerk, let the record reflect that Mr. Weiss went over his time. I want to repeat to everyone that disrupting a public meeting is a crime. You should enforce the 3-minute rule on yourself. When it comes to the point where the chair is forced to gavel, you have gone over the line, you have disrupted the meeting. I'm not a police officer, I'm not here to arrest you, I'm not a prosecutor, and I'm not here to charge you. But I will note when the rules have not been followed, and it is a serious thing. If we claim to care about the law, then let's follow it.
Thank you. Brian Kolkowski from Leroy Township, Ohio. Once again, we are listening to this nonsense spewed against Commissioner Plechnik. My son, who is an Air Force officer and a pilot, served in Afghanistan. He flew 200 missions, was given the Air Medal for his actions, and is a newly admitted member of the Missouri Bar. He has followed your meetings for the last several months on a weekly basis. He has shared with me that he believes the Republicans in Lake County are embarrassing themselves. Further, he believes we need to protect our elected officials, like Commissioner Plechnik, when they are being attacked for reasonable stands they have taken, such as voting down the sales tax increase, as Commissioner Plechnik did. As a parent, I have always sought to instill the very best values in my children to do what is right. As a prospective grandparent in November, this is even more important to me. Mr. Weiss, you are a parent, and I hope you can look at your children and believe what you are doing with honor by making accusations from what I can see have no basis in fact. Let me read a poem that I keep on my dresser and read on a weekly basis. There are little eyes upon you, and they watch in day and night. There are little ears that quickly take in every word you say. There are little hands all eager to do anything you do, and a little one who is dreaming of the day they'll be just like you. You are the little man's idol. You're the wisest of the wise. In his mind, about you, no suspicions ever rise. He believes in you devoutly, holds that all you say and do, he will say and do in his own way when he's grown up just like you. They're a wide-eyed little one who believes you are always right, and his ears are always open, and he watches you day and night. You are setting an example every day in all you do for the little one who's watching to grow up to be just like you. The author is unknown. Mr. Weiss, I hope you will think about this just like I do on a weekly basis and come to the right conclusion. Thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion? Bishop.
Bishop Mabel, 1049 Brentwood Drive, Pennsville, Ohio. I'm standing here today to thank God for the protection of our president. A bullet was shot at him, and God stopped it. Only God could do this. I believe not only the United States, but the entire world saw this. The Bible said we must pray for our leaders, and God saved our president. I give God the praise for that. I give God the praise for Psalm 91. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dale Fellows, 2812 Fowler Drive, Willoughby Hills. So yesterday, we had an outstanding event in our community for the Salvation Army. It was the Christmas in July event. And the Salvation Army, of which I've been a member of that board for 30 plus years, does such outstanding work, incredible work here in our community. And people got to hear some of the results of their work and some of the great stories of rehabilitation of people, of the help that our community pitches in through the Salvation Army to help those who are less fortunate than us, those who have fallen on troubled times. And I really appreciate all the support the commissioners and other elected officials in this room and in this community have given to the Salvation Army, because Lake County is truly unique in that area. We are truly blessed with so many good people, good deeds that people do, and very, very generous. So I wanted to thank the community and the commissioners, and I see on your agenda today, item number 7, a resolution regarding the Salvation Army, and I appreciate your support of that. And on a totally different note, though, we saw this weekend, of course, what vitriol can do and the end result of vitriol. And of course, there's been a person who continues to spew vitriol here in Lake County and at these meetings, none of which is factual usually, or even close to being factual. And so I would, in the spirit of help, I hope that person will get the help that he needs at some point, and to realize that the folks that he is taking counsel from are nothing more than just people spewing evil, and hopefully he'll get rid of those types of people and that evil in his life. On a much more positive note, I'm looking forward to the resolutions 1 and 2 about our youth, because our youth are our future of this great community that we have here in Lake County. So I appreciate the work that you all are doing, and everyone have a wonderful party in the park this weekend.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion? Anyone else? Hearing none, in closing public portion, I'll take personal privilege as President of the Board of Commissioners in quoting John chapter 15, verses 18 through 25. If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. Amen. If you belonged to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. That is why the world hates you. Remember what I told you. A servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. If they obeyed my teaching, they will obey yours also. They will treat you this way because of my name, for they do not know the one who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not be guilty of sin, but now they have no excuse for their sin.
That's right.
Whoever hates me first hates my Father as well. Amen. No one here has an excuse to act with hate or vitriol. We know it's wrong. And while I would never compare the small work we do here to that of the President of the United States, not a day goes by that I don't think of President Trump and what he has endured. And I am reminded that each of us is called in our own small way to make that contribution. When my youngest brother and sister had their sacrament of confirmation, our bishop came back to our church and he said, you have a choice as Christians, as human beings. You can be friends with the world, or you can be friends with Jesus Christ, alluding back to the Gospel of John. We cannot be popular and loved by the world if we do what is right. So when the day comes when everyone pats me on the back and says, "Good job," I will be afraid. There are people who I would not want the praise of for any price, because only those who sell their soul receive such praise. So let us aspire to do better. Let us follow the rules of public portion, and let us set a good example for those who've joined us from 4-H today, because we need to demonstrate that Lake County and the United States of America are better than this, and that they will have the greatest life and the greatest generation ahead of them, so long as they follow the good example, not the bad. So with that, public portion is closed, and I do want to begin resolutions under which we will invite 4-H to speech. But Madam Clerk, if you could begin.
Mr. President, as long as we're on a theme, though, could we just have a brief
No,
moment
no,
and just
Mr.
say,
Commissioner,
if we could,
that's
with
enough.
With
That's
God,
enough.
all things are possible is not just our state motto. I thought it was important to add that. Thank you, Mr. President, for your indulgence.
It's special resolutions, resolution congratulating an outstanding youth of the year 2024 by the Ohio State University Extension of Lake County.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution congratulating an outstanding youth of the year 2024 by the Ohio State University Extension of Lake County.
Move to approve.
Second.
And for discussion, I would like to introduce the Ohio State Extension Director, Miss Lisa Manning, a former member of our senior advisory panel, someone who's been involved in all things Lake County, to talk about our outstanding youths and their participation in 4-H in the upcoming Lake County Fair, I believe next week.
Yes, next week. Thank you for having me, commissioners, and I have brought some youth. We are here today to talk about fair, which it starts July 23rd, which is Tuesday, which we will be having our outstanding youth ceremony, and we will announce our outstanding youth and some of our other outstanding advisors, and we go through July 28th. I've brought youth with me because they're going to talk about the different projects they've done in 4-H, not just the animals that we showcase at our during the fair and have at our livestock auction, but we have other projects here. And I just want to comment. Mr. Fellows talked about the Salvation Army. While you see at the fair the projects the kids have worked on, and that is something that they work on all year long, they also do community service all year round. And one of the programs that we also have contributed to is Salvation Army. We've helped with the Back to School Bash, but they help with many different projects and community service in the community. We even have this year we even have the Salvation Army has a club, and they will be showcasing that club at our youth building. So that's another thing that we have at the fair for you to come into our youth building and see the many different clubs that we have. So each youth is going to kind of come up and talk about what they're doing at fair to help you recognize the things that they should come and see and what's going on, and then I'll finish up at the end.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. I am actually the retired queen, Lake County Fair Queen, so thank you for the honor. My name is Giselle Scipione, and I'm from Reins and Ribbons 4-H Club, which is primarily horses. I am 18, and this is my 10th and final year in 4-H. I only bring horses. However, my time as Fair Queen showed me that maybe I wanted to bring a goat. Wrong choice. But I do have 4 goats now that live in my barn and destroy it. But
For the record, 2 out of the last 3 fairs, I have won a goat. at the
Really?
auction. Yes.
Okay. Were they good?
They were. It's like a lean pork.
Okay. Well, these are, I ended up with boy dairy goats, so they're really just to look at. It was not a good choice. But it's okay. They'll be at fair to look at. Anyway, my projects are Custom Step Up, which is a 4-year-old bay mare that my advisor, who's also the saddle horse president, allows me to learn on, as well as my personal horse, Slightly Boss, who I show in all the versatile events. So pretty much you prove that your horse can do anything. What I've learned from 4-H is a sense of responsibility and sportsmanship. I have been fortunate enough to have a bachelor's degree. I graduated this year from Ursuline College. I would not have learned the amount of responsibility it took and the dedication without having a project. I don't show livestock like the other kids. My project comes home with me. However, I still put in all the work that it comes. But my favorite thing about fair is the sense of competition, but the friendliness that comes with it. These kids, they're so proud of their work that they want to show it off, but they also have that, I can do this. I put my effort in. I put my best foot forward. I can do good. So thank you.
Well, let me just say, once a fair queen, always a fair queen.
Absolutely.
Good morning, Commissioners Plechnik, Hamercheck, and Regovich. My name is Margaret Robinson, and I'm a part of the Wings and Things 4-H Club. I'm currently 19 years old, and I have been in 4-H for 10 years, and this is concluding my years in 4-H. I'm currently raising market goats. Their names are Tito and Zeus, market lambs, Sarge and Blue, market hogs, Violet and Casino, and I'm also raising market chickens. 4-H animals are the best for you because they are fed non-hormonal diet, which is all natural stuff that is good for you and tastes good too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lily Peeler, and I'm in the 4-H Club Wings and Things. I'm currently 17 years old, and this will be my 11th year in 4-H. This year, for my projects, I have 2 pens of chickens, which is a little different. I've had a variety of other projects in the past. This year's a little bit different. I have a bit different approach this year. I tore my ACL in January, so that's limiting me slightly, but I can still make the best of this year for what I have and do a great job with my projects. So at the auction, when you buy an animal, you get to pick your processor and your food comes to you packaged just like in the store. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners Pleshnik, Hamercheck, and Regovich. My name is Macy McDonald, and I'm in the Wings and Things 4-H Club. I am currently 12 years old, and this is my 4th year in 4-H. I am raising 1 steer named Max, 2 pigs named Percy and Melody, and I have a breeding sheep named Rose who will not be sold in the auction. I'm going to take her home. And I think that 4-H animals are the best because they're loved, cared for, and walked every day, so their meat is better than the ones you can buy in the store.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Maddie McDonald, and I am in Wings and Things 4-H Club. I'm currently 12 years old. I've been 4-H for 4 years, and I am raising a market goat, a market steer, a breeding heifer, and 2 market hogs. If you would like to see us show our animals, you can see me at the fair showing on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Then you'll see all the hard work I've put into caring for my animals.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Owen Lynch. My club name is Ringleaders. My age is 12. My years are, I've been in 4-H forever. My projects are steer, pig, and turkeys. Their names are, the steer's name is Maverick, the pig's name is Rick, the auction takes MasterCard. I just realized.
Take your time, you got
Does it
this.
take Visa too, though?
Yes, it does. Visa, American Express, checks, and cash.
Good morning, Commissioners Pleshnik, Hammercheck, and Regovich. My name is Aiden Milo. My club name is North Coast Critters. I am 13 years old, and this is my 5th year in 4-H. I have one heifer, her name is Betty, and I have a pig named Chomp, and I'm doing turkeys and chickens. If you buy a grand champion or reserve grand champion, you get your picture taken with their purchase project, and it is posted in many advertisements. The fair book, papers, or livestock fires, to name a few.
Thank you.
I also have buyer's letters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
They're bringing the, quote, whole farm to the fair.
Good morning, Commissioners Plechik, Hammercheck, and Regovich. My name is Leanne Milo. My club name is North Coast Critters Junior Livestock, and I was also a camp counselor for Camp Whitewood. I'm 16 years old. This is my 8th year in 4-H. My projects this year is my cow Bradford, my pig Norman. I'm bringing 2 pens of turkeys and 2 pens of chickens, and my horse Callie. Available at our auction are hogs, steers and heifers, chickens, turkeys, lambs, and goats. And if you don't want an entire animal, let us know when you register, and we can help you find somebody to split it with. You can also donate your animal to a charity such as Salvation Army. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations to our 2024 Fair Queen. She's not here, but I thought I saw the...
She's in the court.
Okay, Queen's Court. Well, I saw Queen. I must be predicting the future, though. I must be predicting the future.
Nice recovery.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mikey McDonald, and I'm in Wings and Things 4-H Club. I am 12 years old, and I've been in 4-H for 4 years. I have a cow named Cyclone, a pig named Boots and Pocahontas, 2 pigs named Boots and Pocahontas, and a goat named Goatee. We provide a dinner for all registered buyers, which is very yummy.
Yummy indeed.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Evelyn Peshik, and my club's name is Experiments Are Us, which is one of the only non-animal clubs in Lake County. My age is 12 years old, and I've been in 4-H for 2 years. My project's name is Let's Bake Quick Breads, and one thing I learned from my project is the anatomy of a wheat kernel and just like all about quick breads. And one great thing my club did this year was a car wash and a bake sale that raised a lot of money for our club. And one thing I love about 4-H is just how much it helps people, all kinds of people.
Wonderful.
All right, well, thank you for your time, and please attend the Lake County Fair where you can see all of our 4-H youth. I don't know if people saw, but one of the youth brought up buyer letters, and that is one of the things that they have to do is they have to secure buyers. They have to go meet with people in the community, so just another thing that we do with our youth development. At our auction, we have almost 300 projects that are up for sale this year, so I think about 100 of those are chickens, poultry. So come see us at the fair, come see us at the auction, and of course we appreciate all the commissioners do to support not just the Extension Office, but our Lake County 4-H program. So thank you very much.
And I will just add, the livestock auction is 4 o'clock on Saturday, July 27th. Registration starts at 2 p.m. at the Lake County Fairgrounds in Painesville Township. I regularly see Dr. Mark Komar there, as well as former Commissioner Ray Sines, and we would certainly encourage not just all elected officials, but all Lake County residents to visit the livestock auction and support the kids. Thank you so much for coming today. So with that, you are welcome to stay with us for the rest of the meeting. It might be interesting, you never know, but you're also free to leave if you'd like as we get back to business as usual. We do have our final roll call on the vote.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Pledge.
Yes, it's official. Madam Clerk.
In the Utilities Department, resolution transferring appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Water and Project Fund 595, Lake Shore Boulevard Waterline Replacement Project 431W 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Water Fund and Project Fund 595, Vine Street Waterline Replacement from Route 91 to Route 2, 467W 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Sewer Fund and Project Fund 596, Dodd Chimney Ridge Sunshine Acres Facilities Improvements Project 456S 2021.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution approving final estimate number 5, release of retainage in the amount of $35,999.49 with SCS Engineers Incorporated for the 2022 LFG System Construction Project 458L 2021 for the Lake County Department of Utilities.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
And the Commissioner's Office, resolution authorizing execution of agreement between the Lake County Board of Commissioners and the Salvation Army for funds received from the U.S. Department of Treasury under the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, known as the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021.
Move to approve.
Second.
For discussion, we were hoping that the major from the Salvation Army could join us. I don't see them in the crowd, but I would invite former Commissioner Dale Fellows to come forward as a former or maybe even current board member of the Salvation Army to talk a little bit about this item in the absence of the major.
This is our canteen. So the canteen is so important. People don't realize when there's ever a disaster, what could be a train derailment, it could be storm issues, it could be whatever it might be. Any of those types of situations, our canteen is there as quickly as possible to help make sure that the folks that are working on it, our first responders, et cetera, are fed and hot coffee and tea or whatever it might be. That's absolutely essential. I'll tell you an interesting story too, and it wasn't our canteen, of course, but on 9/11, which is going to be coming up here pretty quickly, the anniversary of it, that our canteen in New York City was there on site so quickly that when the second tower came down, it took out the entire canteen. It was buried. That's how quickly the Salvation Army responds to these kind of disasters. And so we have not been with our canteen for a few years because of the cost and because of the repair work that needed to be done. They're obviously very expensive to make sure they're well equipped, and so this will make us back to whole, as I call it. The first responders throughout Lake County will very much appreciate having that canteen back up and running, and a new one. So we absolutely thank the commissioners for their support on this and all the other endeavors that we do. But this is very, very essential, and thank you so very, very much. And we thank the community.
You're most welcome. As we've always said in Lake County, we'll never defund. We defend our police. And it's my understanding that the last canteen for the Paynesville, for the Lake County Salvation Army, was damaged, I believe, down south for Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
So we have lent our services nationally as crises have occurred.
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that it's not just about Lake County for our canteen. It goes wherever there's a disaster that we can go and help, and that's exactly correct.
Well, it's been a while since Hurricane Katrina. I'm grateful we're in a position to replace the canteen and to help our Salvation Army. Any further discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Commissioner.
I believe this is brought before us, it's been some time now. Amy Sabbath brought it to our attention a while back, and now as we're getting to the end of our ARPA funding, we weren't sure if we're going to have funding for this or not. So as we're committing those final dollars, that's a good thing we were able to find a way to make this happen. So
That's true. I will say I had heard from both Amy Sabbath and Sue Bentley about how important this matter was, and I want to thank both Sue and Amy for their service to the Salvation Army along with their families and friends. Any further discussion?
As long as we're giving credit to who's been bringing it to our attention, former Chief Mike Warner, also Captain Warner of the Sheriff's Department, as he likes to say, he was a cross-dresser, went from a fire uniform to a sheriff's uniform, so had a lot of fun with that. But being a Vietnam vet, he understood the necessity of having reliable equipment, the idea of projecting out to other areas, such as responding to Katrina, but also being able to receive aid. So it's not just one way. As we participate, others would participate and support us should there be the need. So I think that's worth adding to the record. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Regovich.
yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the execution of a renewal agreement between Zupka and Associates and the Lake County Board of Commissioners on behalf of the Lake County Auditor's Office for assistance in completing the 2024-2027 financial report.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? I do see that our Lake County Auditor is with us. Would you like to in any way contribute to the discussion on this item? I sure would not. He declines. He declines. Any further discussion?
He was phoning it in. Come on there, sir.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing advertising for bids for office renovations of 100 West Erie Street for the Lake County Board of Commissioners. Bid opening August 14th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Jason, do you want to give some, I'm sorry, I was going to say some background. This was kind of
Well, I was just going to say, I know that Jason is going, that our County Administrator, Jason Boyd, is going to be giving a full presentation on the jail. This is part of the shuffling that is going to occur as a result of that, so maybe we defer this for the full presentation, unless there's any...
I'd just rather do it now. This is property on West Erie Street that is currently the home of the Lake County Public Defender's Office, and this is for renovations of the second floor of that facility. We're beyond the scope of what we had to do in-house. So, thank you.
Very good.
And reimbursable expenses, do you want to get into that?
Minor detail. Thank you.
I tried.
We've been working with Public Defender Clapp and her staff in the state of Ohio. These improvements will be subject to whatever the going reimbursement rate is from the State Public Defenders Commission, which Joe, I think now is 75 cents on the dollar. So that is, we'll take that deal any day. So
And I will say I've encouraged the County Administrator to get this project fast-tracked because that reimbursement rate has progressively been going down. So the faster we get this done, the less cost there will be locally. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the use of a credit card held by the Lake County Board of Commissioners in accordance with Section 301.27 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Boyd?
Sure. So the county has worked with the credit union next door for the longest time on our credit cards, and that's a line of business that the credit union doesn't do anymore. So they've been generous enough to let us keep our cards till now. When Zach got hired earlier this year, one of the projects that Jason really wanted us to focus on was finding a new, better option. So this will be the first card that we're actually going to get from Huntington through a program through CCAO. We've been working with the prosecutor and the auditor's office to make sure we're in compliance with what we need to do. I would anticipate sometime later on this year, after we get the kinks worked out of this new program, we'll probably see cards for other county offices that may potentially need them in accordance with our draft and upcoming revised credit card policy. So that's what this resolution is for.
Very good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $604,875.24.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $1,516,044.50.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes. On to departmental reports, starting with utilities.
No report today, Commissioners.
And I see we have no representative from Job and Family Services. I'm going to skip to the clerk and legal because we will have a rather lengthy presentation from our county administrator. So, Madam Clerk.
Yes, the next Commissioner meeting is going to be next Thursday, July 25th at 10 a.m.
And legal. No report. Very good. So, the main item for today is going to be a comprehensive presentation of where we are to date with the planning and ultimately the construction of the new Lake County Adult Detention Facility and Sheriff's Office, our new safety center for Lake County. This will be the largest capital project in the history of Lake County, Ohio, and we've been working for years now in preparation for it. We're very grateful to our county administrator, who himself is a professional planner, for his hard work on this project, and we're excited to hear an update from him today, along with support from our sheriff's office, so that the public can get a sense of where we are in this project, what inning of the game we're in, and how far we have to go. So without further ado, our county administrator, Mr. Jason Boyd.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I think you took my first slide or two. I want to first start by thanking the commissioners and the Sheriff's Office for their leadership the past few years on what's been a very complicated and timely project here. The goal of today's presentation, it's about 3.5 hours, I'm kidding, is to provide a detailed review of our timeline, the process by which we've been working, the team we've assembled, our project goals, our current status, and our go-forward strategy. In addition to the sheriff and the commissioners, I want to just take a moment. There's a number of people who've been very important to this project thus far. Chief Izzo and the sheriff's team, Captains Vanjo and Simpson and Backnicki, Lieutenant Eldredge and Michelle, among the myriad of other sheriff's office folks who've participated in the planning the past couple years. The Lake County Community Corrections Board, we've had a couple presentations over the past couple years. For those who don't know, the Community Corrections Board is a committee that meets twice a year, includes all of the judges throughout the county, both municipal judges and county judges, the county prosecutor and some other representatives. Thanks to Auditor Galloway, Treasurer Zern, Joel and I and Zach have had meetings with them as we wrap our arms around the financing plan. Thanks to the folks here on the 5th floor who've done whatever I need, whenever I need it throughout this process. It's a great group of folks. Thank Mr. Hackman and Mr. Colson and your team, Nina and Kelly and so on, for contract review. Mark Eiffelis and Paul Stefanko aren't here today. Mark and Paul, along with the sheriff's folks, maintain the facility that we have today and do a heck of a job doing so, and we'll continue to do that in the future. And also the value they brought to the planning and design on kind of the structure and generators and you name it. I also want to thank Joel and Zach, notably the past 6 months on as we put the final touches, if you will, on the finance strategy and allowing me to get my arms around what is the largest capital investment in the history of the county from a general fund perspective. I also want to throw a thank you to Mr. Matus, who provided a solid foundation for the budgetary practice by which the path we're going to take, excuse me. Last but not least, City Manager Doug Lewis, the City of Paynesville Council, and all their departments. They've been a pleasure to work with. The Sheriff and I were at the Planning Commission a week ago today, and I'll note our approvals there, but they've been a really excellent partner in navigating through the approval process, zoning, urban design, and so on. So really the past 10 years, since I became administrator, one of my primary tasks is, along with, at that point in time, Chief Liam Bruno, now Sheriff Liam Bruno, was getting our arms around the public safety, so the current facility. So I have a couple slides here of what do we know, what the cards we've been dealt. And And the sheriff, if I get out of bounds here, feel free to step in. And I should have begun this conversation with, this will be published to the website today. I can get it to the media outlets, and it'll be followed by a press release. But what we know is the facility opened in January of 1990 at a rating of 353 beds. In 90, we brought over 100 inmates. And so, which I'll get to some of the challenges associated with that. The current facility, and this is no secret, is often full and significant rehab is required. Our average daily population from the sheriff's statistics is about 330 inmates, but it has not been unusual to have over 400 inmates in a jail that's licensed for 353 beds. So one can imagine the challenges that the corrections officers and the sheriff's office has when you have a surplus of inmates and how you house those individuals. Some of the challenges that I've learned from the sheriff's office in 1990, the male versus female inmates. We brought over about 10 females in 1990. Once again, there are times where we have 100 females in that facility. Once again, the operational challenges with that ratio. The number of misdemeanors versus felons. In 1990, the ratio was 2/3 misdemeanors, 1/3 felons. Today, that is inverted, where we have approximately 2/3 felons and 1/3 misdemeanors. Once again, the operational challenges of securing those particular facilities. And I'll briefly go through the next couple challenges that we know. Woefully inadequate medical facilities, the operational challenges with the mental and substance abuse of our inmates. I think the number sheriff ranges 67% of the inmates have some sort of substance abuse or drug problem. How do we provide programming space, counseling space, and so on for those individuals? Woefully undersized kitchen and laundry areas for a facility of that size. I think that was never more apparent to me when we went to Wayne County and we got to look at, so that's in Detroit, at the size of their kitchen and laundry facilities. So we're looking forward to that. Additional need for adult probation. Chief Barry and his needs and the growth of his agency and what they need to provide the services to the community. And you know, we think about the jail as the hardened facility, but what I've learned the past couple of years as I spent more time at the sheriff's office is what I'll call the soft side. Just the general office space, the lack of flexibility, the lack of conference room, training areas, areas for SWAT, evidence storage, and so on. It just does not meet today's standards. Some more things that we know, and we've talked about this ad nauseum the past decade. We've had 3 major studies completed, and I won't get into the weeds and the results because we know where we're going. We had one completed in 2014. We had a facade evaluation in 2018, which Commissioner Hammercheck is very familiar with, and then we took another peek in 2019. Basically, we know the jail requires millions of dollars in renovations, and it needs to be replaced. All the mechanical systems, most of the mechanical systems are at the end of life, and renovating a jail that is often full just does not make fiscal sense over the long term. So I'll spend a few minutes on the project planning process. I think this is very important to understand the diligent nature by which we've taken thus far. As I noted, we've been working on this for the better part of 10 years, but I think things really kicked into gear in 2021 when the commissioners selected project management consultants to act as a owner's rep for the county, led by Jeffrey Applebaum, who's actually a Lake County resident. PMC came on board in the summer of 2021. In some early conversations, we talked about how are we going to deliver this project. We chose, it's called Bridging Design Build. So I think a lot of folks here in the county are familiar with the traditional method by which we build projects, and I'll use a sewer line, for example, where Randy's team or consultant will design a water line, give a cost estimate, put that out on the street for 30 days to bid it, and then every Wednesday at 11 a.m., Jen and Kathy will open bid documents, and typically the award goes to the lowest and or most qualified bidder. That delivery method is not the preferred method on a project of this scale and scope. So we chose the Bridging Design Build, which essentially, and I'll expand upon that, allows our architects and engineers who are designing the building to be teamed up early in the process with the guys and gals who will be swinging hammers early on, as opposed to waiting. So, and I'll expand upon what Gilbane is doing with our designers here in a moment. Step 2 was bringing on the architect. That process began in 2021. They are responsible for the program, the schematic design, and the detailed design, which I'll expand upon. The third step, which happened last November, was bringing on the design build team, which is essentially the contractor. The design build team is responsible for finalizing the construction documents, which most of us would call blueprints, and then issuing what's called the final GMP, Guaranteed Maximum Price. and that GMP contract will be forthcoming later this summer into the fall. And during this process, we've done the following items. We've continued to budget proactively for the build. We've looked at other sites. We've acquired property Key Point on a fee simple basis. As properties became available, we acquired those properties in direct proximity and adjacencies to the current footprint. We've renovated other offices in preparation for the move. We passed a resolution today with that, so the Public Defender's Office, some Prosecutor Colson's attorneys, we've provided the space in preparation for clearing the proposed footprint, and we've maintained the current facility today to the tune of $200,000 to $300,000, sometimes $400,000 a year in what we've used as Band-Aids to keep the facility operational and in compliance with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction standards. Briefly, this is the team that we have assembled. I think this is a high quality team. Obviously, the county commissioners, along with the sheriff, are in the driver's seat, if you will. I noted project management consultants. Jeff Applebaum is our owner's rep. Jeff, along with his team of Ellis Katz, Amy, and a slew of other professionals behind the scenes, have been doing the project management on behalf of the county and myself. What does that include? You name it, they are doing it. Helping me with land acquisition, legal review, revised code compliance, contract preparation, and so on. So basically on that side, Jeff and his team will do a lot of the initial work. I will send that downstairs to Mr. Hackman and his team so that we have almost a duplication of review when it comes to legal matters, and it's been a great partnership with PMC. Our criteria architect, HOK, based out of St. Louis, offices in Chicago are where our primary team is located, led by Jason Wandersee and Rebecca Brand. I think the sheriff and chief will echo this statement. For those of you who don't know Rebecca, she's the project manager and has done a heck of a job keeping this project on task with upwards of 40 professionals on these calls and keeping us moving in the right direction. So with Rebecca, Ryan, Eric, and countless number of architects and engineers and designers on HOK's team, it's been very fruitful. K2M is another architect on the design team, the criteria architect, Scott Maloney, who's very familiar with the jail. Scott and K2M actually performed a few of the projects in 2014 and 2019, so he has a good familiarity with our project. And most recently, we've added our design builder, and Gilbane, the design build team, which is Gilbane out of Cleveland. K2M will shift to the design build team, and also a local firm, Lakeland Construction Group. So that is our team today moving forward. How did we get to the criteria architect? I'll briefly go through these slides. Back in 2021, PMC consultants drafted a request for qualifications document. We posted that through December of 2021. In this room in November 29th, we held a pre-qualification conference where architectural firms, engineering firms could come here, and myself and the commissioners, I don't know if we all remember, but we gave a brief presentation on what our vision was in 2021. We then gave some time for firms to prepare proposals, culminating in 2 sets of interviews in early 22 and the ultimate selection in April of 22 of HOK consultants to be our criteria architect. And I should note, all of this was done in conformance with the Ohio Revised Code in the procurement process. Same plan of attack to bring on the design build team. About a year ago now, PMC consultants prepared a request for qualifications for design build services. We posted that in September, had another pre-qualification conference here last August. And in October, we received 2 proposals, one from Gilbane and one from PJ Dick, Pittsburgh, and with Independence Excavating. There aren't a tremendous amount of firms who build this type of structure. So quite frankly, we were excited that we got 2 really qualified proposals to review last fall. We conducted interviews in October of 2023 that included the commissioners, the sheriff, myself, PMC, and various department heads to do the evaluation. That resulted in a resolution about Thanksgiving of 2023 selecting Gilbane under our pre-construction services contract. The next couple slides, we'll get into the details of the HOK's primary responsibilities. They're listed here on these slides. In 2022, they spent a year on a program, and I'll get into what a program is. That then merged its way into schematic design and detailed design development. In the past year in these meetings, I've been using baseball acronyms. So the program is the first inning of the ballgame, maybe the second inning. Schematic design is innings 3 and 4. Detailed designs are inning 5 and 6. So that would be the scope of work that HOK has been charged with the past 2 years. And we have just most recently completed the detailed design. So what is programming? Well, quite frankly, it's everything, and it's critical to the overall project's success. Essentially, HOK and their team took a deep dive into the commissioner's operations currently and what they need in the future. It's very important to understand that the program results in minimal maps. This is a series of spreadsheets and narrative that put forth what the future may look like, ultimately resulting in a square footage analysis and a final rough order of magnitude cost, which is our first look at kind of the arena in which we're in financially. During the program, we're looking at the site. Commissioner Hammercheck used this word future-proofing, and that stuck with me. We have countless planning meetings. I put plus or minus a week, 2 a week. That's probably woefully low. I think we are on a call 3-4 times a week at this stage. We're looking at existing best management practices, precedents with other safety facilities. We're starting to get a feel on scale, the size, the massing, where it's going to be located, and as I noted, the rough order of magnitude. This is what a program results in. It's not maps, it's not blueprints. This is the cover sheet of the program in 2022, about September of 2022. And what you'll see are categories of areas within the Lake County Sheriff's Office and gross square footages. So at that point in time, we were looking at about a 200,000 square foot facility in the fall of 2022 at 504 beds. I will note the 504 beds have stayed, and as you'll see, the square footage number has increased as we've worked through the schematic design and detailed design. This particular slide is just a snapshot, and there are, I think this program was 180 pages long. There is a detailed cut sheet for every square inch of this proposed facility. What I grabbed here is in the sheriff's suite, the detective bureau. The example of how much square foot do we need for copy area? How many square foot do we need for the conference room? Evidence storage, drug evidence. That's the level of detail that HOK and the Sheriff's Office got into during the program. We continue to look at our site. Obviously, this map represents the area that when we started the process, we owned in blue, plus or minus 5 acres here on the screen. Our goal during the program was to ensure that site would work because we knew in the previous studies they said it would, but also begin the future-proofing process. As we continued through the program and learned that the site did work, and I'll show the following graphic, it became evident that when available on a fee-simple basis, the county should consider acquiring extra property. The area in red indicates that initiative that we've really been working through the past 2 years. This map is dated because obviously we have acquired additional areas, for those who can't see it in red, the Chicago Redmond building we also have under our ownership. If there is one map that was produced in the program, it was this. And this looks something that a very elementary massing exercise. This is the lone map in the program. And basically what this does, or what this did, was it took this gross square footage and analyzed its capacity on the current plus or minus 5 acres that we had. It answered the question, confirmed the question that yes, indeed, a building of 200 to 210,000 square feet and the associated parking will work. Additionally, this map also gave us, a little additional push to examine that fee simple acquisition as it called for future parking adjacent the Burger King and the current jail facility. As we concluded the program, we get into this rough order of magnitude cost. So let's put some timeline together. COVID 2020, 2021. This process is in 22. I would argue we're kind of coming out of COVID, but the construction market was very fluid at that point in time, still is. So we had the impact of the general market. What did the supply chain look like? Escalation and inflation, we're still dealing with that. Labor costs, and what is the value of time? So the deliverable in the program was a budget at 200,000 square feet of about $171 million. So that was our first glance at 200,000 square feet, plus or minus 3 stories at about $171, $72 million. We then proceed to schematic design. Okay, so we're in the second, third inning of the game, and here things are starting to take some shape. The building maybe is starting to come out of the ground. We are planning and designing ad nauseum floor plans, site circulation, landscaping, food and laundry layouts, central utility plant. Mark and Paul cannot be here. Maintaining and working on the infrastructure. Commissioner Hammercheck knows this. is a pain in the tail in that current building. This new building will have it's not standalone, but a central utility plant where all of the major mechanicals will be located. Security, both in and out of the jail. The sheriff's team spent a lot of time on that. What type of cell types? Prefab steel, concrete. We ultimately selected steel. The configuration of the cells. And then during the schematic design is the first time we start to hear the word value engineering. And we'll expand upon that. So some of the deliverables in a program. So now, we had Excel spreadsheets. Now the designers are taking those spreadsheets and putting each department of the sheriff's office into a block and start to stack those departments based on a square footage standpoint. So in this rendering, these squares are hard to read, but they say probation, medical, jail admin. So we start to look on a per floor basis, level 0, levels 1, 2, and 3, how things will stack and where various disciplines within the sheriff's office should be located. And it's hard to see, but we also get our first sense of height. So on this slide to the far right, there's an elevation of about 70 feet. We'll talk a little bit about that because I'll be in front of Paynesville City Board of Zoning Appeals this evening for a variance. This is another example of going from a spreadsheet to now we're starting to see this thing go live. This is a detailed sheet of what's called level 0. I quite frankly don't know why we don't call it the basement. The lingo started at level 0 2 years ago and we've stuck with it. But this is a slide that takes the blocks, puts them on just a piece of paper and looks at adjacencies. So for example, what you see on this particular slide are food service, the sheriff's warehouse, quartermaster, evidence, staff and fitness. Where should those particular uses go on level 0? And these building blocks were picked up and moved a number of times during the schematic design. And this exercise also occurred on floors 1, 2, and 3. This is our first look at parking during schematic design. We know we're at 210,000 square feet. We know what the city zoning code reads, so now we start looking at what is the parking needs of the sheriff proper, his ancillary vehicles, his employees, his visitors, juvenile court, so on and so forth. And this is where I'm going to just take a pause in the presentation and briefly talk about parking. It is probably one of my #1 complaints from employees. I have a different approach with parking. Parking will be a challenge over the next 3 years, but we are in a downtown urban core and we have plenty of parking. It's just not where people want. So I would respectfully ask that folks and agencies bear with us. We're going to supply some additional parking down the road, but just my quick editorial comment that there is plenty of parking in the downtown area. The entire commissioner staff walked for 3 years during the construction of this building. So that's just, and I'll have future correspondence on how we're going to address parking down the road. So I digress there a little bit. Continuing along on other variables that were examined. This is doesn't mean a lot. It didn't mean a lot to me when we started. I think one of the commissioners was in this meeting, we heard the words borrowed light. How do we get natural light into the building, and particularly the ranges for the inmates? So they looked at all 4 cardinal directions at various elevations, sun angles, and so on. So we maximize the amount of sunlight, i.e. borrowed light, into the building. Once again, just an example of the level of detail by which we were working. Future proof, we take a look at, should this building need to expand down the road? We looked at all 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. What are pros and cons, opportunities, and constraints to a future expansion, probably when we are all long and no longer around here. So I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on this particular slide, but the expansion plan in 50 years would be plan east or to the right toward the Burger King. Building character. I think we've heard a lot about how the current jail looks. Early on in the 3rd inning, we start having conversation of what should this thing look like. Using the city's design standards, their zoning code, and working off some precedents, existing structures in the downtown civic core. This particular building, our fabulous courthouses, City Hall, the churches, Morley Library. Those were the precedents that we provided to the designers to give them kind of our guardrails, if you will, what we want this facility to potentially look like. Duplicating the existing structure was not an option. I heard that loud and clear from the commissioners from day one. This is a prominent civic justice representation, and it should be treated as such, with all due respect that it's taxpayer dollars. We start to see our first site plan. So the graphic here, The dark gray area is the footprint. We have juvenile court plan left. You start to see in the lime green some buffer areas, the parking starting to take shape. There's also a sheriff's garage, which is located by the Buildings and Grounds facility. So this is our first look at the layout on the real estate that we've acquired. We also see the first glimpse of this thing coming out of the ground, the first vertical iteration. And this is literally the designers taking Sharpies and pens and listening to what we had to say as far as precedents in Morley Library and City Hall and architecture. So this is the first glimpse that we received of what this building may look like. That was followed during schematic design with our first computer rendering of the potential facility. And I think you will note right away, and I know we did as a design team, this does not scream jail. This has that civic presence of a library or a non-secure facility when indeed it is very secure. And finally, the schematic design ends with a budget. So this was the 100% schematic design budget provided, this was last fall, the fall of 2023. So here we can go right down to the bottom line, because that's what we all do, and we see, oh man, we're now at $217 million. Couple reasons for that. As we work through the finalizing the program and into schematic design, we realized, the sheriff realizes there were additional spaces that we need now, and probably more importantly in the future. So we wanted to make sure that we programmed and designed for that in the schematic design. Secondly, you will notice on this budget, we have a 15% hard cost contingency. That is $25 million. That you will see in subsequent slides. As we progress through the design and engineering, we eliminate unknowns. When we eliminate unknowns, we can thereby reduce that contingency on the recommendation of our designers and our contractors. So this particular schematic design budget in the fall of 2023 was about $217. This is all in. This is consulting costs. This is furniture. This is IT. This is bricks and mortar. You name it, this is baked into this number. So we finished schematic design. We know where we're at financially. And I guess I should say, at this point, we also realized, and I used the term value engineering earlier, that value engineering was going to need to come into play. So we moved to detailed design. Really here, we let the fine tuning begin, and everyone, the consultants, the sheriff, myself, we start to roll up our sleeves to fine tune what this looks like. Value engineering. I think we lived by this mantra for a number of months. Need versus want without affecting long-term operations. I mean, the sheriff's office is making decisions on whether or not we had a call yesterday, do we want to buy a dental chair? I mean, that's the level of detail. What can we bring over? Where can we save money? I mean, every little bit helps. During the detailed design, we are working with a multitude of reviewing agencies, including the City of Paynesville. Last Thursday, we received our Planning Commission approval for our conditional use permit, our design of the facility, our demolition, and our temporary parking at the Chicago Title Building. We're starting to finalize architecture. The site plan, the sheriff's staff is kind of fine-tuned where they want various detention facilities, adult probation, detective bureau, training facilities, weight room. Those items are essentially buttoned up during the detailed design. Now we're starting to hear from interior designers, somewhat interesting, paint colors, what type of wall coverings, ceilings, acoustics, from start to finish. Our first really, and we heard about this, but we really get into serious dialogue about early procurement. For example, this is a 24/7, 365 secure facility. It always has to have power. We need 2 large generators. Right now, those have a 52-week lead time. So we need to bake in time to have those manufactured, shipped, tested, and available, and have the ability to be put on site when the structure is ready for it. So steel cells, pre-manufactured steel cells, another potential long lead items. So during the detailed design, HOK, Gilbane are starting to put the feelers out there for us that, hey, make sure you have some liquidity, and we do, to potentially procure these items early. And we also have taken a couple site visits by this point in time. We went to Wayne County in Detroit, and then it was March where we went to Nashville, Davidson County to look at a couple facilities and learn what works. I think maybe more importantly in the second example, what we didn't like. A very significant point of detailed design is Gilbane is now at the table. So at the end of 2023, we brought Gilbane on, and they've been in every meeting from paint colors to geotechnical analysis. What type of foundation are we using? The beauty of having Gilbane at the table is they've built these before. A lot of times the designers and architects will have a vision. Gilbane and their team can come in a respectful, professional manner and say, we don't think that's going to work, and here's why. So you have both disciplines at the table at the same time during the detailed design. Some examples of what we're working on detailed: we're really getting into the weeds on site circulation, pedestrian access, staff access, where deliveries are coming in. We worked with the city on bringing deliveries in off of North St. Clair as opposed to Jackson and Erie Street. I think we have a slide deck of about 100 images on our signage program. Not the sexiest, most fun part of the project, but we spent probably 5 hours in a planning meeting talking about signage, both interior and exterior. The image in front of you is just a schedule of signs on the interior of the facility. I quickly learned that this is a science. There's a means and methods to fonts, colors, size, how high these signs are located, to ensure that we have the best wayfinding in the sheriff's office. We start to see our first cross-section of what the building will look like, what most folks are traditionally accustomed to seeing on a set of prints, and I'll expand upon this in a moment. The site plan begins to take shape. Now we are definitively seeing the paved areas. So in this image that's in front of you, we've got the outline of the footprint, juvenile court parking. They will net out the same amount of parking. We will not lose any parking there. Secure parking for the sheriff's folks, secure parking at the rear. A lot of lessons learned. Currently, you can walk right up to the sheriff's walls. That will no longer be an option. In the new facility, there'll be an 8-foot, hopefully an 8-foot, we have a variance request this evening, 8-foot secure fence around the facility that'll have access control for sheriff's employees only, or others who we give privileges to. We'll have public parking along the frontage of Erie Street, wrapping around Burger King, and also in some of the ancillary parcels that we've acquired on the footprint. Per the city guidelines, we have to start thinking about landscaping. So this is just a quick image of the vegetation plan, buffering, and so on. More than likely, and thanks to Mark Eiffelise and his team, we will self-perform the landscaping as we did on this building, which will be a fairly significant savings for the project. And probably the fun part, most exciting, now this building is coming out of the ground. So the next few slides will show some renderings as they show today. So we'll start, and folks have seen the site plan. We're at 3.5 stories, located directly across the street from the current jail. You see the sheriff's garage, located a detached sheriff garage. The parking, we see the relationship to telecom, juvenile court. This is kind of the main access corridor for the Sally Port and so on. Here's the site today, a bird's eye view, if you will. And I hope everyone gets a visual of how the building, 240,000 square feet, will fit onto the site. Hard to see on this slide, but the red dotted line represents the county holdings as of today. Obviously, we also have acquired the Chicago Title Redmond building, which will be future parking. Phase-wise, the front three, I've called them, the former Ohio State University Extension Building, 125 East Erie Street, and Burger King demolition will start in the next 30 days. Asbestos abatement is occurring as we speak right now. I want to also note our relationship and collaboration with the Land Bank, the board, and John Rogers. We are doing a 50-50 cost share on this demolition, so that's a huge help to the project budget. This is what the structure will look like on site. So you see the buildings are gone. We have a 3.5-story, 240,000 square foot structure. Sense of scale, a super Walmart's about 200,000 square feet, so you get a sense of scale. Obviously those are 1 story, this is 3 stories. We get our first look at the perimeter fencing that I referenced for the sheriff's secured parking, kind of our Sally Port on plan left, ingress and egress, connecting Erie Street and Jackson Street. And quite frankly and honestly, we don't know what our parking, when we all net everything out, will we need the parking on the corner on some of the parcels we acquired at St. Clair and Jackson Street? We have that. We future-proofed ourselves, so time will tell how much parking we will really need. What happens when the jail is occupied? Sheriff's in there, inmates have been moved over. Well, the current jail is planned to be demolished. So this rendering shows the jail less the new jail less the current jail. Right now, we've programmed that. It's about 121 additional public parking areas. To my previous comments about how much parking will we need, not sure yet. We're meeting the zoning code, but the takeaway is we will have plenty, and we will have the ability to add. I've had some great conversations with the city manager, Lake Tran, on is there a collaboration project anywhere in the downtown core to make sure that we have enough for our employees and our guests, and as the downtown continues to develop, additional parking for things like Party in the Park that's occurring this weekend. So this is the fun part. This is a rendering. Let's imagine you're walking from Arby's towards the jail, the current facility. This is that bird's eye view southeast. I just want everyone to take a moment to hopefully appreciate the materiality of the structure, the change in plane. It's not one blank wall. We have window patterns, we have pillars, and what we've tried to do is we've tried to mimic some of the design elements of Morley, of City Hall, of our buildings with the bricks. You will notice in the main entry, kind of that sandstone look that we have here on the Nolan building. The structure will be elevated on what's known as a plinth, and this image kind of gives a better feel of that. This is if the current sheriff's office is gone. You walk out of the door today and this is what you will see. I don't think anyone in their right mind would argue that that's a jail. I think it's a tremendous representation of a prominent civic structure. So here you get a sense, they've got some renderings of individuals here, a sense of scale, similar to our county courthouse, where you have to enter the steps and get that sense of place. And we'll have our ADA requirements on the right side to make sure that we are an accommodating facility. Continuing our walk down the street, now we're walking past the sheriff's office today towards Conrad's. We're on the opposite side of the street. This just gives you another perspective, looking at the right side of the building, if you will. Once again, you can start to see our attention to detail. We've got some concrete retaining walls, our landscaping. Here we have our ADA compliance. You can see here on the far right side of this particular rendering the secure fence for the sheriff's employees and others who they deem fit. Kind of take a drone view, if you will. This would be looking from, let's say, above the Conrad's building. As a matter of fact, the Conrad's is shown in the bottom of the image. This gives you a good sense of how it fits on the site and the surrounding residential neighborhood. You can see our buildings and grounds telecom facility on plan right. Continuing to swing around, this is the rear Jackson Street facade. I think it's important to note that we continue the architectural character on all four sides of this building. Maybe because it's in my blood, but nothing drives me nuts when I see a really attractive building and you drive behind it and it's cinder block. It's just not the right way to do it. We wanted to make sure we were in line with the city's urban design standards. So what you see here, once again, is we have a change in plane. There's indentations in the building, if you will, a window pattern, a mixture of materials with the brick. And what you see here, the gray, is kind of a pre-manufactured panel system that will mimic the main entrance to the county administration out here. Our first look at the central utility plant, while it may not be important to some folks, it's critical to the overall success and sustainability of the building. This is a street view from Jackson Street with appreciation and respect to the residential homes across Jackson Street. This will be a earthened berm and vegetated buffer. So this is looking at the rear, and you get a sense of the secure fencing in the trees. There's a whole cut sheet or specification requirement that the city has that we will meet to ensure the buffing requirements are met. Boggles my mind when I see tractor trailers today maneuvering through the current facility. We'll actually have loading docks for deliveries. I think from an operational standpoint, I've learned from the sheriff's staff that maybe we won't need to have deliveries as frequent as we do now because we're going to have ample freezer space, storage space, docks, and so on. So from a scale perspective also, there's some renderings of some individuals here to get a sense of scale. And you'll notice we've incorporated the architectural design even in our central utility plan. The next four slides are basic elevations. We've seen these. This is the front facade. This is the side. If you're standing at Judge De Leon's Juvenile Justice Center, this is a good representation of the topography that we are taking. So this is Erie Street here on plan right. We're taking advantage of that change of grade at about 10 to 12 feet towards Jackson Street. So this particular area will be where the Sally Port is. We will not have, those of you who are familiar with, on a busy morning, first responders, police officers backed up on Erie trying to get in this current Sally Port. This is the rear of the structure on Jackson Street. We've seen this. This is looking from the Burger King. Once again, you get a good sense of the change in elevation. This is a pretty neat graphic. We'll actually be presenting this tonight at this Board of Zoning Appeals. The red dotted line across the top is a visual representation of the height of the current building, the current jail. The zoning code is a 45-foot height requirement. We are well above that. There is a precedent with the current jail, but we'll use this as an exhibit tonight for our position statement for the variance request. And we'll also have kind of our setback analysis off of Erie Street. We want this building to be tucked up as close as we can to Erie Street. Not only is that a good urban design principle, it also quite frankly, gives us room to buffer off of Jackson Street. Just a few more slides here. This is the level of detail that we're at in detailed design. This is materials. The designers physically shipped brick samples, glass samples to the sheriff's office for them to take out in the sun, you know, and see what they liked. So we had to submit this to the city of Painesville. This has the manufacturer, the color of the brick, the tint of the glass, and so on. And so these may change a little bit as we finalize design, but all of these things were incorporated into our planning commission approval last week. So we've seen the building come out of the ground. We've got a good handle on the site plan. Now we get our 50% design development budget. As I noted earlier, we're at the end of design development, but we only have the 50% estimate. We're anticipating the 100% estimate in the next week or so. So now the building size hasn't changed, but we've got that number down. Because we went to about the 6th inning of the ball game, we've eliminated a number of the uncertainties. So we have the ability to reduce that hard cost contingency to 8%, which is still a healthy number of about $13 million. And we've kept our 5% contingency, and we'll continue to do that. So that at this point in the game, with the contingency reductions and some of our value engineering, we've reduced the budget back down to $205 million, which is kind of our working number right now. To that point, Joel and Zach and I have been looking at what other areas in the budget maybe we already paid for and accounted for. And we're still working through that exercise. But for example, the criteria architect, line item 3, 5.6, that has been budgeted for and essentially paid for. So there may be an opportunity as we gear ourselves toward GMP to remove that because it's been paid for, accounted for, so that, which is good news. Last two slides. I know you guys cannot read this. This is the timeline. All the 3 questions I get are, when are you starting? When is it going to be done? And how much does it cost? Well, right now we're in that $205, and how are you paying for it? We'll discuss that. Right now we're in that $205 million time frame. We are right now in in-depth discussion and analysis on the financing plan, and we'll speak about that. As of today, I had a call yesterday with Gilbane. Probably could see a construction fence go up in early to mid-November is when we could see a fence go up. Potential completion date at this point in time, and obviously we're still in the 6th inning, 7th inning of the game, is July 2027. So we're looking at about a 3-year window. And included in that, we have to think about training for the sheriff's guys and gals, commissioning of all the equipment, both HVACs, IT, access control, cameras, and so on. So there's a lot of work that will occur when a lot of folks will think, oh, the building's done. Well, it may look like it's done, but we got to make sure that it's running efficiently and all the operations are hitting the marks of the sheriff's office. But right now, construction completion is slated for July of 2027. Now, what we learned in this particular building, and it is baked into this figure, is we are in Northeast Ohio, and winters are either can really slow down a project. They have baked in weather days on this, but if we have a good winter and we can get this thing dried in, maybe that timeline can be shortened a little bit. What are our next steps? Well, we've completed the detailed design. I've talked about that. That is happening as we speak. We're working through our city-state approvals. Planning Commission last week, Board of Zoning Appeals tonight. Everything, Phase 2 documents have been submitted to the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections. They have a whole internal approval process. We are transitioning to our design build team. So essentially, HOK will go from the driver's seat to the passenger seat, and Gilbane will take the wheel with their team, which includes K2M, Lakeland Construction Group, and a number of other variables. When Gilbane takes the wheel, they'll be responsible for the construction documents, the CDs. So innings 7, 8, and 9 and ultimately issuing our guaranteed maximum price, our GMP. That'll be the large construction contract that'll be put forth before this board late summer and early fall. Simultaneously to this, we will continue to have the conversation on early packages. Should we buy generators? Should we order the cells that'll be manufactured in the United States? And we'll continue the site demolition process, so logistically we're ready to go. We will also, and we'll spend a moment on this, we are going to finalize our finance strategy. So in short, we're going to do a combination of cash, let me back up. This finance strategy has not been worked on in a silo. Obviously with Joel and Zach, myself, previously Mr. Matus, Treasurer Zurin, we've had meetings with Treasurer Zurin, Auditor Galloway's not here, the Investment Advisory Board, the investment advisor herself, from Eileen, our bond counsel, our underwriters. We've had numerous meetings on how we're going to accomplish this task. So we have, and everyone knows this, we have positioned ourselves over the years via proactive and conservative budgeting to accomplish, I think, this once in a lifetime, once in a generational project, while still having the resources to effectively run the 11th largest county in the state of Ohio. A couple highlights of where we stand financially. The only general fund debt that we have on the books, and I don't know how many counties can say this, and this is accounted for and will be completed this year, is the courthouse renovation project. $1.1 to $1.2 billion on an annual basis will be completed this year. If not, it's accounted for now. That frees up a little bit of money. Current cash position in the public safety account at the end of June was $75 million free and clear in liquidity. We have $75 million in the bank right now to begin this project. We have a AA1 bond rating, the highest bond rating that we can get, and that is a good thing. That is going to look great with the financial institutions. We have our bond rating meeting here in a couple weeks. So we are, from a fiscal outlook position, we're in a really positive spot. Last year, the commissioners wisely passed a reserve fund policy for some of our accounts that will provide guardrails and limit the amount of funds that will be in there. So we'll always know we're going to have X amount of dollars in some of our revenue sources. We continue to see positive economic activity in this county, from not only the county proper, but developments in the city of Mentor, Willoughby, the townships. Joel just gave me a briefing on our revenues in the building department last week. We're well above norm, but we're realistic that things may reduce. But talked to Dave Strichko last week, chief building official. He's been in the field most of the summer just due to the volume of work we have. That's a positive sign. Our planning and community development director, David Rodacci, told me Friday we had 3 developments submitted this month in the townships. We haven't had that in a long time. Interest earnings are extremely positive, yet there's a footnote to that. We understand they've been above normal, but we still budget on historic norms. But obviously we will take these positive returns that we've seen the past couple years and hopefully into next year. Sales tax is still a positive trend. Car sales, the retail impact that we have here in Mentor and in the West End, we still have a very significant retail base. These are all really positive variables in our situation. A couple other items that we don't talk about, but in the current jail, when it was opened in 1990, as I noted, we brought over 100 or so inmates at a 353-bed facility. At that point in time, a decision was made, hey, we could probably bring on other inmates and bill for those that generated revenue to help pay off the current building. We are not budgeting any money for that, but that may be an option down the road. Opioid dollars. The county has received some opioid dollars. Once again, we have not budgeted any opioid resources into this project, but if there are eligible expenses, programming, and so on that are in accordance with the One Ohio MOU, which is kind of the guardrails of opioid funds, we potentially have that ability for resources, probably in the programming side, the treatment side, the criminal justice side of the sheriff's operation. So this initial financing of a cost of $205 million, excuse me, as I noted, would be that combination of cash, and we're thinking we have a good chance, a good feeling about $80 to $85 million in the calendar year 2024. So going from $75 million to 80, maybe $85 million at the end of this year. So we will look at the cash. We'll do short-term notes. and long-term bonds that will be callable after 5 years based on market, based on our cash flow. We can use that $80 to $85 million, visualize or imagine like your home as your kind of down payment on a $200 to $205 million project. So if we have $80 million on a $200 million project, that leaves us with a delta of about $120 million needed for debt service. A lot of calculations with bond counsel and our underwriters. That looks to be about right now $7.2 million that we would need on an annual basis beginning in 2025 to meet our debt service obligations. To repay this debt each year, we're expecting, and we've had conversations with the county auditor, conservatively 1.7, probably more in additional revenue from property taxes. I noted the elimination or the fulfillment of our debt obligation on the county courthouse, 1.2, so now we're around that $3.2 million, which leaves us a delta of about $3.8 or so million. And so the strategy is transitioning from putting those dollars in our quote-unquote savings account, our public safety account, which we've done for the past 10 years, and transitioning this into the proverbial checking account so that we can cut that obligation payment each year. So we will have, so if we deposit in the numbers range each year, if we traditionally have deposited $5 million into the public safety account, moving forward, revenues being what they are, we will then use that or a portion of that to pay the $7 million of debt service in combination with the capacity that we will gain from the debt service coming off the books, increased revenue from the property taxes. We are currently in the final stages of this process and plan. We had a meeting yesterday with our team. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. We have the investment advisory meeting next week in preparation with our bond call with Moody's second week of August, Joel. That'll actually be a Zoom meeting. We're confident that we've positioned ourselves to the best extent possible with our existing revenues. We're in a stable position. That said, this will only be able to be maintained on a team approach through hyper-conservative budgeting from here on out, and then a great team approach starting with the county commissioners and all of our elected officials and department heads. We have worked really hard, not only on the planning and design, but also on the financial strategy to finance the building and still effectively operate the county on a go-forward strategy. So that concludes my remarks. I can't thank the sheriff enough for his team. Sheriff, if you have any words or if I missed anything, I don't want to misrepresent any of the actions that we've been working on. Commissioners, I'm happy to answer any questions. This presentation will be online today, followed by a press release. But I, without objection, I'd probably like to come back to the table in 30 to 45 days with subsequent updates on the financing and GMP and so on. So, Sheriff.
I think it's important to emphasize that this jail project is 10 years in the planning. This has not been lightly arrived at, the impact that it has on the county. As in Mr. Boyd has highlighted here, and all of you can see, his professionalism in helping to direct this project has been invaluable. Exceptional leadership there, and I really thank you, Mr. Boyd, for what you've done in this project. It's been a lot of input from this county, and you highlighted that from our telecommunications department, Paul Stefanko, Buildings and Grounds, Mark Eiffelise, who work on the current building, have seen the problems and used their ideas into this new project, has been critical. Chief Robert Izzo, sitting to my left here, and the captains in the jail, Captain Eric Banjo, Scott Simpson, and Mario Eldridge, have had huge impacts. I mean, we probably have had 10 to 12 hours of meetings each week for the past 2 years with their input into what this design looks like. Repeatedly, HOK has told us and they build jails and major projects throughout the United States. They said, you guys aren't asking for enough. You're very limited and very directive in what you need. Because we know it's important to put into this facility, based on our experience, what we need now, what we need moving into the future, but not a lot of frills into that project. And that's important for our financial accountability to the citizens of Lake County, to always make sure we're using those dollars as best as possible. But this jail will meet the needs of mental health and returning inmates who come to us back to the community better than when they first arrived, with drug treatment, mental health services, medical services. Probably 2/3 of our inmates are on some type of medication, either mental health or in terms of their physical health. We have lots of inmates with physical problems that are in our facility that we have to make sure they're taken care of from the moment they arrive till the moment they leave. But if we're returning inmates better back to society, they're better for their families, they're healthier in our community, and they can build a better Lake County community through our work with the courts, through probation, and all the various services here in Lake County. We have been fortunate to travel around the country in various meetings and meet other facilities, other players in the criminal justice system. I need to emphasize that Lake County is rare. It's rare, its communication between its law enforcement community, its prosecutor's office, its courts, its mental health services, its treatment programs like in the Adams Board. All these services working and communicating together is key to building a stronger Lake County. This jail is necessary. I don't think it's a frill. We have seen over the years that the current facility, you're not seeing this building used for something else once we're out. It's coming down because it's poorly built. It is a huge financial drain, and it is inadequate for the services needed today. So I believe we're at the right spot for Lake County moving forward. And so thank you, Mr. Boyd, for all of your work in getting this project together. Last thing I need to mention, the county has been so smart in acquiring an owner's rep. So Mr. Applebaum, and working with Ellis Katz, Mr. Applebaum has been the lead owner's rep on huge projects throughout almost every stadium that's been built in the United States. He has worked on and been that representative. They bring those skills to this and are able to understand the contractual environments and make sure Lake County is taken care of and not making any mistakes moving forward. Thank you. Chief, anything to add?
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. For my part as president of the commission, I would say we are very blessed, as the sheriff said, to have a national and international expert on jail and major construction in Kirtland, Lake County, Ohio, Jeff Applebaum, representing us, and that certainly has pushed our project forward. And while the sheriff can't say this himself, we're also very grateful, as he mentioned, the importance of having the captains of the jail, those who've actually overseen it. The sheriff has been captain in charge of the jail. He has worked within the old facility for many years, and he's testified in other continents on best practices in jails and jail construction. So we have another international expert here that's helped to oversee this project, and that's one of the reasons why we've proceeded so quickly. And I do think from the perspective of the average Lake County resident who doesn't see themselves visiting the jail anytime soon, we certainly don't want them to, I think their concern is that this necessary facility is built as affordably as possible, so that the other critical services that they're used to receiving, whether it be patrol from the sheriff's office or service from Job and Family Services or a water line from Department of Utilities, there's still funding to achieve those ends. And that's one of the reasons why, with the sheriff's help and Jeff Applebaum, we've worked to expedite this process. We've heard from our consultants, not just since 2021, but from years back, that every year we delay is millions of dollars in cost. And when you look at the old estimates from the county, I think going back to 2017 and before, there was a sense that the jail would cost about $70 million. You know, fast forward to 2024, we're seeing nearly 3 times that amount with an over $200 million price tag. So there's a great savings to expediency and getting this project done as quick as possible. And I'm grateful that we've been able to fast track it since 2021, because every day we save translates to a lot of taxpayer dollars. So for those of us who are worried about all the other critical functions of Lake County government and making sure that taxes are low and services remain strong, by moving this project forward so quickly with the sheriff's help, we are saving millions upon millions of dollars to the taxpayer, and we're extremely grateful to you for that. Several times our county administrator mentioned our partnership with the city of Painesville. We cannot express our gratitude sufficiently to City Manager Doug Lewis, his team on City Council, as well as all the planning professionals on the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals for working with us to approve this project as quickly as possible. It's really important that we continue to move through this process, and we can only do that through a partnership. We really need to continue that with downtown Painesville, and I think that by showing our desire to have a civic structure that reflects the real character of historic downtowns Painesville, we've earned their trust, and we've reinforced that. We've reinforced that partnership with residents as well as with those who represent them. But I'll close in saying that none of this would have been possible without our county administrator, Jason Boyd. And while you have a big team and a lot of people have supported you in this, you have been the point person. And as with so many other things, we're incredibly grateful to have a planning professional, not a politician, in this role, because in many other cases, you're sitting on the other side of this, evaluating the project, so you can be critical and give us that outside perspective, even as you care so deeply about this project. And I'm confident that with your help, the people of Lake County are going to be very well served with this new facility, which will last long until everyone in this room is dead, hopefully myself included. Any further discussion from the board?
Mr. President.
Mr. Commissioner.
I don't think we can overstate. This is once again a project in Lake County that we've had so many people's input and working together to get where we are. I like to tease the sheriff. I know he watches HGTV to stay up on design trends and whatnot, but it really came to light for me when we were in Michigan and we saw that sheriff's office there that had conference room and a shower, and our sheriff said, I don't need any of this. I just need my office, my desk like I have now, a joint conference room. He's really looking out for the bottom line, what we need to be effective, and I think Commissioner Hamachek and I from the beginning said, you know, we have to future-proof this. We have to make sure that in 10 years, 20 years from now, this building is as effective as is the day it opens. They've done that. They put a team together, and I can't understand the hours and hours and hours of meetings and phone calls and here and there. I mean, and it's the same people after year after. I've seen them take those blocks, move them around 10 times in one meeting. How does this work? How does this work? And when you get at the end is the function where there's a secure area and a non-secure area where you can move about the building if you're there visiting and not have to worry about being in contact with an inmate. How they can move through the building quickly to go to an emergency without have to be in contact with an inmate. All those minor details coming into effect goes to that bottom line. And to understate what Jason has done, being a planner helps, but he's our eyes and ears. I tapped out months ago and I didn't understand what you guys were talking about anymore. And I've been in construction meetings many, many times in the past, and they're in the level that most people wouldn't believe. And you may get tired of hearing it. You might get tired of hearing these names, but I'm going to continue to say it. So thank you, Jason, our internal team, the Sheriff's Department, the whole list that you've already heard. Our finance guys, I think, wring their hands, and every day here, how can we, with this is always number one priority. And everything else that comes before them, I said, how does this fit into what we're trying to do with the jail project? So I appreciate that oversight, and I appreciate you guys looking out for us. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. President?
Mr. Commissioner?
Just by way of a little bit of history there, just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because I'm sure you would not want to confuse the public or anybody else in reference to the old reviews, the estimate of $70 million. Again, you got to keep in mind, we were looking at a building that was in the 25 to 30 years range of its life, dying before its time. That's a problem. The due diligence associated with what are we missing? The efforts, the level of documentation, the care from our sheriff's staff, from our buildings and grounds, our telecommunications people. But that $70 million estimate was to give some sort of sense of scale of what would it cost to replace the building today. Just a one-for-one replacement, sense of scale, if you will. But keeping in mind, and I've said this numerous times, the current jail was obsolete the day we took possession of it. That's all that $70 million represented. It was so that this board, boards previous, our overall county administration could explain and justify to the public why that albatross needs to be replaced. I think our sheriff's been very kind in his depiction of that facility, but it has been a problem. As a former jail administrator, back when you were a sergeant, the fitting out of that building, the county personnel back in the day had to finish the building before we could move into it. Contractors went out of business putting that thing together. A little bit of history shouldn't get lost.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
If I may finish, sir?
Yes.
Jason, excellent presentation. To you, all those who worked with you. You definitely stuck overwhelmingly to the things that we agree upon. Overwhelmingly. But as you mentioned, and you did touch upon it, finalizing the finance strategy. We have to comprehensively look at everything. We have to have a plan for funding this that is clear, articulatable, dependable. The public's going to want to see that. It is necessary. We've all said that we believe in funding the police, not defunding the police. Our law enforcement in general, our justice system, no less than 2/3 of our entire budget commitment. We have to look at every possible cost. And I would certainly hope that we're not going to set a course where we're going to be forced to defund the police, or we're going to be forced to be raising the inside millage. I realize that's a very bitter pill, one that I've said from the beginning is unacceptable. Property taxes are a serious and growing problem in this county. Let's not add to that burden. But all I ask is we need to look at this in all aspects, not just the most optimistic. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And to Commissioner Hamercheck's point, I recognize that we all wish we could go back in time to 2017, build the jail then, buy NVIDIA stock, and be very wealthy. We can't go back in time. That's obviously not possible. But it does underline and emphasize the point that expediency is important now. While we can't go back in time and make the decisions we wish we could, we don't have plutonium and a DeLorean to get there. We do need to do the right thing today, which is to move forward with all due speed. And once again, that's only possible with the help of our county administrator, our partnership with Paynesville, the hard work of the sheriff's office, and so many more. And that's how we ensure that we have sufficient resources to support our sheriff's office and all the other important county functions going forward. It's by not delaying something that we know we need to do, getting it done now so that we can minimize that cost as much as possible. And I was very gratified to see that we were actually able to lower that estimate somewhat from $217 to $205 million. I know that was a lot of hair pulling, a lot of difficulty, and a lot of sacrifice on everyone's part to get us there. But we are moving in the right direction, and I think that the average Lake County resident should be very grateful, and I know I am very grateful to all of you for the hard work you've done in making this possible. We will continue to push and move as quickly as we can to save money for the people of Lake County, and I'm confident that we will get there.
If I may, Commissioner, one thing that I forgot to bring up, and Commissioner Hammercheck was here during this building, is our emphasis to the highest extent possible on local labor. We have made that known to Gilbane, your guys' relationships with the building industry and the trades to the highest extent possible. We want our Lake County men and women to be the proud workers on this very civic building. So I just want to make sure that I noted that too. Obviously, it's a specialized structure. We're in somewhat of a proverbial race with other counties who have similar construction projects forthcoming. We have positioned ourselves to meet those timelines, but I just thought it was important that I bring that up, that local labor. We had a lot of local labor on this, the steel, the concrete, the electrician. We got a lot of good guys and gals here that can really build us some quality products.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. And I would echo and emphasize, we've all expressed the priority of having local and union labor in this project, not only because we want that multiplier effect in our community. When we hire a Lake County resident, we're creating more opportunities and more dollars flowing through our local economy, but because we recognize that local and union labor cares about this project for the same reason we do. They're going to see this structure, they're going to live next door to it, they're going to drive by for the rest of their lives too. This isn't just a job to them, this is their community and a public service. So we thank all those in advance who are going to be doing the hard work of actually building this jail, the professionals who are going to make it last for the next 50, 60 years. Because once again, to Commissioner Hammercheck's point, we don't want a facility that falls apart 25, 30 years in. We want a facility that lasts 50 to 60 years. And we're not going to do that by cheaping out or by hiring people from halfway around the world. We're going to do that by hiring quality professionals from our community who care deeply about this project and want to see Lake County succeed. So I'm grateful to hear you reiterate that commitment. I know it's one that we all share, and I think that's another positive that you can't bake into this budget, that having this project done by local people, by union work, is not only giving us a better end result, but it's also pumping those resources back into our local economy. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Mr. Commissioner?
Just to put a finer point on this, 2017 you referenced. If you look at the timeline, I realize Jason had a very finely typed small font there of timelines. If you look at the lead-in timeline associated with projects like this, 3 to 5 years are typical. The level of due diligence, Sheriff Dunlap with Chief Deputy, then Frank Liam Bruno at his side, pointing out issues and concerns, the due diligence associated with doing a refit of the existing building with an addition. All of those were deemed impractical, but it was necessary to research. The questions deserve to be asked and answered, and they were, which is what has brought us here today. So having a DeLorean with fanciful this, that, and the other thing, and the flux capacitor would not have helped us. But it's nice to think about it. Great talking point. With our luck, it'll probably be the headline of the newspaper. Sorry, Chad, had to go there. But it does seem that this is a very serious undertaking, and it should be taken very seriously with the eyes wide open. Thank you, Mr. President, for that
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And once again, I would underline, I understand, because we've heard more than a few residents come forward and express their concern about the cost of the jail facility. We all wish we could go back in time. We understand there's no such thing. But what we can do today is not allow the price tag to go from 70 to 210 to 620. Instead, we are taking the action and we are moving forward. And from 2021 on, we've had that push. I understand that information paralysis is a real thing. That's why leadership can be so difficult. You hear from a lot of folks who say, I don't want a jail. I don't understand why state law mandates it. Can we really afford it? Should we try to, and I would say never to this, raise taxes to pay for it? I understand you have those differing voices that debate each other, but the difference between information paralysis and leadership is to see what the true costs and benefits are and to make a decision that comports with a majority of the residents who put you there. Not easy to do, and you're right, there is no magic solution. There's no classic car that'll drive you there. But you're right, we ultimately need to make sure that we move forward quickly in the real world today because we can't go back in time.
And Mr. President, I'm sure you're not intentionally wanting to confuse the issue, but this bears pointing out. The 70 million does not compare to the 205 million we're talking about here today. One was a benchmark of what would it take to replace the existing facility. Now we're talking about a facility of what the actual county needs are. So the public really, as far as managing expectations, we need to focus on the 205 million. Again, just to keep things simple and moving forward. Thank you again for your indulgence.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And I would certainly agree that the 205 million is the important figure today because that's what the price tag is with the increased cost of materials, the higher interest rates that are prevailing today. We all know that 2020 to today, inflation has been unbelievable. That has impacted labor costs, material cost, interest cost. So the projects that were done prior to 2020 obviously came in at a much lower price tag. That's something that everyone, even folks at their kitchen table, understand. Any further discussion? Mr. Boyd.
I'm complete with this presentation. I think it's still my report. I just want to welcome
yes, it's still yours.
Young gentleman, Dan Malcheski's here today, Ohio State, interested in finance and potentially law, so he's going to be, we're going to be hanging out today, fine young gentleman, so just want to welcome him to the county, and hopefully I don't spoil his view on county government too bad.
He hasn't run out yet, so
right.
that's impressive.
Right.
And
Thank
Mr.
you.
Boyd, if I could say for the record, we have a great deal of gratitude to your father, Judge Malcheski, for his hard work in the city of Paynesville as a member of the Community Corrections Board that our county administrator had referenced. Your father was a big part of this decision-making process, and his support for this project and his wisdom has made a big difference in getting us here. So thank you for being a part of this presentation. You can go back and tell your father, I know the hard work you're doing for Lake County.
Thank you.
Anything further? Well, with the conclusion of reports, do we have any old business to come before the commissioners? Any old business? Then any new business? Then I would just say enjoy Party in the Park, enjoy the Lake County Fair upcoming next week. The community is ready for some big celebrations. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Make the motion.
For purposes of imminent litigation, legal. There will be no business conducted after that session. Do we have such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second, sir.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes, we stand adjourned.